Welcome, everyone, to Nightmares and Scares, the show that invites you to grab your popcorn and PJs and go to a place where every day is Halloween. A boy's best friend is always his mother, and that monster under the bed, it is absolutely real. I am Matt, and with me, with the spider, is
Dan the Horror Man.
Dan the Horror Man. Uh, I'm excited, Dan. I can't hide it. I'm smiling ear to ear. We are here to talk about Late Night with the Devil. Ooh, brand new film. It is actually, I think, still in some theaters, but it was just released um, to streaming via Shutter, the horror movie app, as well as to purchase on things like Amazon Prime, Fandango, Vudu, and other places like that. So I mean, let's not kill time. Let's just what was your I'm dying to know your initial reaction to this movie, because this is a movie that the tagline for this was the live television event that shocked a nation. I think this is a film that kind of sent shockwaves down the horror community. So, what's just initial reaction to this, Dan?
Well, I know I had a lot of hype behind it when it was talking about how much the box office originally did on March 24th, that $666,666. I know that's kind of gimmicky. I know they can alter that up and down about 5% of the box office to make it seem like that with on track receipts. But it definitely was something to talk about. I think the biggest standout for me originally, without knowing too much about this movie, was David Dismalchin, which I know I've seen him in roles, mostly supporting roles. So in the original Dracula that we had watched, or Bram Stoker's Dracula, he played Renfield, the guy that was locked up, down in the cave or the cage. We also had him as more recently the Polka Dot Man. We saw him in the Batman movie with Heath Ledger. He was one of his guys or his color guard type people. Um, Interesting to see him in a leading role, and I've always enjoyed him as a supporting actor. I was wondering what he would bring to the film, and honestly, it was a horror movie, so we knew it was going to track. My wife and I were both excited to watch this, and I guess we'll get into that. What were your initial thoughts, Mr. Matt?
I could not take my eyes off the screen. I loved this movie so much so it came out on Friday to streaming, and I watched it Saturday, and then I watched it Saturday night, 2 times in one day. I did it. Loved this movie. But before we get ahead of ourselves, as we always do, let me read a brief synopsis and along with some cast members. Um, So, Late Night with the Devil, it is directed by Cameron and Colin Carnes. Um, and it is about a live broadcast of a late night talk show in 1977 that goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. It is starring, as Dan said, David Dismalchin, who you've seen in Oppenheimer, Dune, The Dark Knight, Blade Runner 2049, Prisoners, The Suicide Squad. The man has had a heck of a career, but this really kind of is like his first big leading thing. We've got Laura Gordon from Saw 5 in this. We've got Faisal Bazi. I hope I'm saying that right. Probably not. You might have seen him before in Peter Rabbit, along with some other low budget independent movies. And then we've got Ingrid Torelli as Lily, another one of those creepy children that we talked about last episode with Abigail. Scary children, scary horror movie children. Um, that's kind of the bulk of the main cast. Um, And the time limit. Let's just throw that out there. This runs at 93 minutes, which if you've been with us for a long time, then you know that's kind of right in our sweet spot. That's right in our wheelhouse, that 90-minute um, time frame, that hour and a half. So this 93 puts us 3 minutes over that. Um, Dan, were you able to find any stats on this by chance?
I think for the information that I want to get into, I'm probably going to cover a lot of the facts I found um, while I'm going into my review, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna make you full screen because I actually realized that we got some real reviews to do, and I didn't grab those. So I'm gonna work on that while you talk.
All right. Well, I'll definitely buy you some time, or at least try my best, sir.
Yeah, so let's go some stats and then go right into your review, and then I'll give mine afterwards. And hopefully by then I will be good.
All right. So, just starting off the front, when we're talking about this, so we're looking at the 1970s being the inspiration for this film. And again, late night TV being the ultimate inspiration, right? So, when the directors were sitting down talking about when this should be based, they landed on the year 1977. Why is that? Well, guess what, guys? Halloween fell on a Monday in 1977, and it just happened to line up when Sweeps Week would have happened. So it
And
made
I found it interesting that that Halloween the film takes place. It was made and came out in 1978. So like it was kind of I don't know, just kind of weird quirk that I found being a big Halloween fan. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
yes, thank you for hijacking the whole screen, Matt, from me during my review. I'm jealous of my screen time.
Sorry, it's all yours.
All right, so guys, when I was originally watching this movie, one thing I will tell you about myself, I'm a little weird. The fact that I kind of like true crime podcast type things. I also am interested in learning about like occult type things, and I've been interested in horror movies for some time. Um, so when some of these characters and themes were introduced, I started to think, wait a minute, that seems like something that's like out of real life. And when I said that my review was going to be tied a lot into actual facts from this, maybe you'll find this interesting as well. So, starting with the top, David Dismouch and his character, Jack Delroy. So he was originally sent a whole bunch of footage from an actual late night television host. Was American born, but really popular in Australia. His name, Don Lane. So Don Lane is the inspiration for this character that he's put together. Really smart. Had a few years late night TV, very popular. And with this, there were very particular footages that were used to inspire this film. I also thought it was interesting that, and just as a side caveat, David Dismalchin had been in a film with Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger based his mannerisms and speech style off of a person that the real life Don Lane had interviewed, this being Tom Waits. So I would see, if you're a fan of that franchise, go back, watch the Tom Waits interview with Don Lane and listen to his speech patterns and how he talks. And it sounds exactly like Heath Ledger's The Joker. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But the two characters, or the two people, I'm sorry, that inspired the real life or the movie here that were the real life people were Yuri Geller and Doris Stokes. Doris was probably the most relevant. She was a spiritualist. She did end up writing a ton of books about communicating with the other side. We also had a couple different characters here. Carmichael, who was inspired by the real life James Randi. This was a person that, when I was talking to my wife, I was like, there was actually a guy that had offered a ton of money for anybody that could prove that they are able to control the paranormal, or something paranormal were to happen. Like, he would give them money, and I thought it was $1 million. It was $100,000 check here, but that was actually based on a real guy as well. And then you hear about the Grove. I was like, wait a minute, a place where a whole bunch of famous, rich people would meet, actors, politicians. That's the Bohemian Club, people. I mean, this is something that's real and still around. There's about 2,500 members. Possibly the most, like, the known fact about this, like what kind of things happened there. A discussion that led to the creation of the atom bomb happened at one of these meetings. So definitely very prominent. And then we had Xander Diabo, who is based off of the Church of Satan's Anton LaVey. I mean, guys, I all of what we saw here, even Krista or Christo, was based on someone that was named Chris Well, and also the amazing Chris Skin. So Chris Well was good at like making predictions that didn't necessarily always come true. But then the American Kreskin was famous for being a mentalist. He would be the one that would do the cold call outs in the audience and say, "Is there anybody here related to a Bob or Amy or Joe?" and try to get people to go onto there. So a lot of real life people were the inspiration for this late night TV thing, and all existed in this same time that this was being presented as. So this is a late night TV thing that could have actually happened. Maybe not so much with the possession. But another interesting fun fact, Mr. Wriggles, who is the demonic possessor of this young girl, is actually a demon inspired by Captain Howdy from The Exorcist, 1973. And look at that shot there, man. That looks like it definitely has some Exorcist leanings right there in the aesthetics and the makeup. Um, but in talking about the review, so again, a little bit of a horror buff and some of the things like again, occult and everything else. I was like, man, that's pretty freaking cool that they worked all that in here the way they did and they presented it the way you did. And it started, they're talking about sweeps week. They're talking about being able to hit their numbers, just always being a step behind Johnny Carson, who is again a real, TV personality and ran that, was basically the king of late night for years. And to have this is okay, this is the main competition. He was always a few numbers behind. But then you find out that there's something a little sinister behind all this. And I'll come back to you after we get Matt's initial thoughts on this. So, Matt, I'm going to kick it back over to you for maybe some response. I mean, did you know all these facts that this was based on, real people, actual things? Where are you coming at with this?
I knew none of that. And actually, I actually Googled. I found myself like early into the movie, uh, Googling, "Is this based on a true story?" I didn't really go further than that, purely because I basically saw that it was not. But I did see it said that some of their. I guess I did read that some of the people were kind of based on real people, but I didn't really read much into it. So everything you're telling me is kind of new, but that's very, very interesting and very, um, I don't know, kind of exciting and as a filmmaker to take these people and these real people and use them as inspiration for these fictional characters, I think is always a cool thing. No, as far as I don't, did you really get into your review?
So overall, just the fact that I'm a big fan of that kind of thing, and that I was impressed with how they incorporated so many elements from the real
Yeah.
world into their filmmaking, but really didn't get so far into how I actually felt about the movie overall yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and because I didn't want to like jump in and then you'd take your thunder, take your screen time, as you said. But I'm going to take it now. So here I come. This was so fresh, so original. We were talking about Abigail last episode being original and something new. This is also original and something new. It's in that genre of the possession and the demonic thing we've seen in horror movies a dozen times, more than a dozen. Um, and I think this breathes new, fresh life into that. Um, it's just from top to bottom, really a great story. Like I mentioned, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. David Desmalchin proves that he is a leading man. He is captivating. He fit right into that TV game show host character. The scene. Obviously, I think it's probably the scene for everybody, but the scene that really stood out is like, oh my god, is the scene with the worms, where where the other character, what was his name, Dan? Sorry to put you on the spot. The character, the guy that was trying to disprove everything with the check.
The man who was trying to disprove everything was Carmichael.
Carmichael. Okay. So, uh, yeah, the scene where Carmichael hypnotizes the other guy from the show, and he makes him think he's got worms inside of him, and he's peeling them out of his neck, and it's disgusting and horrifying. And at one point, you're thinking, surely this can't be real. But up until this point, everything that you've seen, nothing makes you think that it wouldn't be real. So you're watching this, and it's like, oh my god, this is disturbing. And then you find out that it's he's hypnotized the audience, which I thought was another clever trick by the filmmakers. He's trying to disprove the that the demonic character in the little girl is a fake, and that it's all a show, for money. And he's able to do the same things that the doctor was able to do with hypnosis. Um, I just thought it was riveting. I thought the cast were all fantastic. I thought everyone had great chemistry with each other. Um, it's one of the I'm gonna say one of the best horror movies I've seen in recent memory.
And I can get on board with that. One thing that makes this compelling is the overall story arc that um, Jack Delroy's personal journey. He ended up apparently meeting this demon early on, and
So
presumably at the grove.
that's what I was going to ask, because we're kind of led to believe that he's dabbled in like demonic stuff before, and
So
something about
that's
the trees.
Yep, and I know my wife and I both like went back and forth talking about this at the end. And I mean the end, a lot of people ask, what is that about? What does it all mean? And ultimately I think that's what it is. It's trying to imply at the grove there may have been some demonic worship, there may have been, deals made. And at the time it was probably more like a good old boys club, and we're just joking around and playing around. But the demon says, I've met you before, Jack. We've talked about this before. And later on, when we're reintroduced to the wife, who tried one to make a connection through Christo, but then again appears behind him. And that was something I thought was really cool too, is where we have a shot where she's like almost see through, where she's touching his shoulder. And immediately
Right.
after it goes from the see through, it cuts to like a close up of him, and her hand is solid on his shoulder. So I don't know if that was just a miss or if that was something that they intended to do, but it definitely gave you the impression that, okay, her spirit is around. And I don't think that she was so much there to torture Jack as it was to just serve as a reminder of what he had sacrificed in order to get this big, most viewed show. Because I guarantee if it had gone over the stats from Sweeps Week, that he would have been leading over Johnny Carson. I know at one point his producer, whoever it was telling them that the switchboard was lit up, people were angry, so people were tuning into this as an event, and that the show ultimately probably got ratings, but at what cost? And to the cost of Jack Delroy, in the end, he's almost put into like a trance, and he's pulled through like these different versions. I mean, the people have been murdered on the set. If people are watching at home, like they can't really hold him accountable for everything he's done until he takes a sacrificial dagger that was used by Sandor Diabo, and also Lily, where Lily was saved from. She's stabbed directly in the heart with this in the end and dies. So, and I have to give props to Ingrid Torelli playing Lily. She had the right amount of creepy. I mean, there's something about somebody that can just laugh like a school child um, when there's murder and death and talk of worms and ripping people open. And she's when the guy's hypnotized, she's just sitting there. It's like, oh, why is he acting so weird? So like he's so acting so funny. And she just almost thinks it's a game. She was excited to be there. She was excited to meet Jack. Ultimately, for her, she
Now let me cut in here. I took that as when she said, "Why is he acting so funny?" Because she didn't fall under the hypnosis, correct?
That's what I would believe as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
so she was just watching him act goofy, pretending like he was pulling stuff out of him, but in reality, everyone else saw what the guy wanted us to see.
Yes.
Continue.
Um, but overall, Really solid movie. Again, one of those that I think definitely steps outside the box. It pulled from again enough real life examples that it makes it creepy, and the fact that maybe they could have had a TV show like this back in 1977 on Halloween night. Maybe all hell could have broke loose, and the demon could have came and talked to him. So, with that being said, solid performance. I guess we'll get do you want to get into our ratings now, or how do you want to play this?
Sure. I just have another question. I don't know why. I guess it's just so I can bounce it off of you to see get your opinion on it because it's the first time we've talked about it. So obviously you mentioned he kills Lily, and we see that, and all the others are dead, by the time this happens. I almost took it to be, I wonder if he killed them all during that trance. Or are we meant to believe that everything that we saw happen actually happened, and
So
the only
I
person he
personally
killed was
believe that it had happened. I don't think that he had necessarily gone insane. I think that he was under the influence of the demon at that point. But the way the bodies were left on the stage, how the one was burned, the one with the broken neck, one with the slashed neck, um, I feel like he wouldn't have been able to do that. But maybe that is something that's left to us as the viewer to
yeah,
kind of be like, huh, I wonder. And
because it did make me think like, well, he probably didn't, like you're saying, but then like it made me wonder, like, huh, if he's stabbing her, I wonder if we're meant to think he did the whole thing during that whole
So
psychedelic.
here's my question to that too. Like if you had a whole live studio audience and you also had like all these crew and cast, if this man started going crazy on set, I feel like at least one person would have tried to like intervene or stop them. But we're
Perhaps, yeah,
brought back. Everybody's gone. Like they're just gone. And it's like eerie silent for the last part of the movie. And you see this man holding this dead girl, and it's just it just makes me believe that what we saw did in fact happen. And again, the playback where they brought back the video, which I thought was very interesting. If they're trying to disprove the hypnosis, they wound back the video. They looked at the part where her face had changed, like she had
mhm,
scars and blood on her face. Why not go back and look at where she was physically levitating? Like that
yeah,
to me would have been the more pertinent part.
right.
Um,
Well, at one point, the doctor says, I mean, she levitated, trying yelling at the guy, she levitated, like, what do you mean you don't believe? Like, you can't, but they didn't go back to that part. They just go back to, her face, like you said.
And James
Um,
Randi, again, the real life inspiration for Carmichael, was also a magician before he became like a permanent skeptic. So
mhm,
he was an illusionist and did all this fun stuff. But again, just how they pull back on that. But it was so funny to me the whole time. His character in particular is portrayed to you as this big skeptic. But yet, when he then starts to believe that she is a demon, he like gets down on his knees, like,
yeah,
"Oh, Lord of Flies, I will serve you however you deem fit." And I mean, ultimately, he gets freaking wrecked and melted and set on fire in the side. But he was, I guess, a believer the entire time. He was just a freaking hypocrite. And I thought that was, that was really well done too.
yeah. Um, so you ready to rate this? Do we want to do what? How do we want to rate it? Do we want to 1 out of 10 late night, no, 1 out of 10 demonic talk shows? um 1 out of 10 psychedelic satanic trips? I don't know.
I guess we could go with the sacrificial dagger on this one, since that was the one that kind of put an end to the movie. If you're okay with doing that.
Sacrificial dagger. 1 out of 10 sacrificial daggers. Okay. Yeah, let's go with that.
Man, I feel
So,
like, whew, are you going first? Am I going first?
doesn't make a difference. You tell me.
All right, I'll hit mine. I'm always interested in what you're going to say. I almost feel like I already know. So I'm going to go with a place that I haven't gone much, except the last review, which is I'm going to go 9 out of 10 on this one.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I'm gonna go. Uh, Sacrificial daggers. I'm gonna go not what you think. I'm gonna go 9.5. Not
Ooh.
9.5 sacrificial daggers.
I almost
Um,
100% believe you're gonna go for a 10 on this one.
and the only thing that kept this from being a 10 for me was the ending. That that psychedelic. I don't have another word for it, but that trip that he happens at the end where everything just gets super weird. It kind of lost me. And not that I didn't know. Well, the first time I really didn't know what was happening, and then I watched it the second time, and I was like, okay, I understand what's kind of happening, but I still felt it could have been done differently, in a way that uh, didn't make everything so just. Bleh. So like it just for that reason, I'm gonna dock it just a half a point. But this is super close. Funny, we were just talking about how I don't give anything a 10. This was so close to being a 10 for me.
I feel like, truthfully, it could have ended, and I almost expected it to end that the wife somehow comes back through Lily and the demon and like kills Jack. I feel like that would almost have
Yeah, I
been.
fully expected Jack to die, and spoilers, he doesn't.
Yeah,
Like
what
he
happens
could,
after this for Jack? Does Jack, go to jail? If he didn't in fact do this and this all happened around him, but people still saw him stab the girl, I don't know. I feel like you might be justified in stabbing a demonic, entity that literally just wrecks three or four people, more
and
so in the stands.
and you gotta wonder, did they leave it open, leave him alive like that for the possibility of a sequel? Because they could have very easily have just killed him off and had everybody in this thing dead, but they left him alive.
I mean, that's the
So
whole thing.
do
We made a deal with the devil, and if it was for his soul, at this point, that deal is kind of done, right? Like he's going to be the most popular that he's ever been. Like I, if he would to come back after this, I'd
yeah.
be like, okay, like I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
I hope we don't. Not everything needs a sequel. I hope this doesn't. It just makes you wonder, like, what was the thought process? Because I personally, as a filmmaker, I would have killed him. I knew without a shadow of a doubt going into this that he was going to die, and
Now,
he didn't.
I think you can open up to more in this universe. I'm not going
Yeah,
to say that you can't because that's the day and age that we live in now. But yeah, I think this story should have been fully done.
yeah, and maybe, hopefully, it is. I mean, I think this is a great film. We've had two bangers back to back with this new stuff. Um, if you guys haven't seen this, I encourage you to. It might still be playing somewhere near you. I can't imagine seeing this in a theater, but it'd probably be awesome. But definitely check it out at home, either on Shutter or on your Prime or Vudu, whatever it is, and let us know what you think. Leave us a comment if you've seen this. This has been out for a few months now, so let us know. There's a good chance that a lot of people have seen this. What did you think? What did you think of the story? What did you think of the ending? Did Jack kill those people, or did it happen? Did it play out the way we saw it play out, and he only killed the girl? That's something I'd like to get opinions on, for sure. So now it's time for real reviews, where we reach out to you guys and we pull some of your reviews on here on the show. We have one-star review and one 5-star review. Dan, I took the 5-star last time, so I will take the 1-star this time, and you will take the 5-star.
Finally,
Finally, it's every other. Come on,
finally. No, I'm
trying to
kidding.
keep it fair. All right, so our 1-star review comes from Lance Michaud. 1 star. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. Not only was the plot juvenile and poorly told, it failed in one area a horror movie should at least aim for, which is to be on some level scary. I spent 92 minutes, actually, it was 93 minutes, Lance, hoping for something to emerge that would pull it all together and make it make sense, and then the credits rolled. Anyone with a mild appreciation for the horror genre should steer clear of this movie and ignore the hype. It's a bad movie. The only thing it succeeded in was capturing the look and feel of the 70s. And if that's what you're looking for, watch some reruns. Google won't let me give it no stars, so please don't think the one star I am giving it means there's something here. There isn't. It's bad. Damn. Lance. Lance coming in hot. He'd give it 0 stars if he could.
I mean, when you look at fans of the horror genre, I mean, it's incorporating real life horror. And you're
Yeah.
gonna say that it doesn't have
Yeah.
any elements of horror in it, man, this is the building blocks here. I mean, there's not
No.
much. I mean, I think it makes it more scary that it draws inspiration from real life, but that's just me. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
just, you know.
No, this kind of creepy stuff, this kind of horror always is like top-notch horror for me. Like the paranormal activities, the the demonic possession stuff, the exorcists, that kind of stuff to me is always the scare. I mean, you can have your slashers, at the end of the day, I mean, it's scary, but it's not scary. Like what's scary is something that like the unknown, right? The stuff that could maybe be real. And this is that for me. Um, so this played, like I said, played every note for me. Lance, I agree with you. The 70s, one thing I don't think we really talked about much. The 70s aesthetic here was brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought it fit very well. They shot it in a way so it's not,
The
full
set
on.
design was very true to a late night TV show
Yes,
set as
yes,
well.
for a 70s late night show. And then, like I started to say that it wasn't like widescreen, it was, shot in like a box
But it
form.
was a 360, camera view. Like it turned to look at the audience. It had, the different cameras throughout. Oh, that was really good.
And one thing it also did that I liked was when they weren't on air, it went black and white. That's a feature that I use in my own films whenever I do a flashback. I typically will always do black and white. Now this isn't doing flashbacks, but I thought it was a good way to differentiate on air versus off air behind the scenes. I thought that was a good creative choice. So now, Dan, I'm going to give you the 5 star. It's a beast. I'm sorry, but I was under pressure.
You
So
want me to read, man. That's gosh. No spoilers. Okay, Joseph. Joseph Pocknell coming at us a month ago. Wow. An absolutely amazing and refreshing piece of cinema, to say the least. From the performances to the overall experience that the movie successfully delivers to its viewers, this being none other than the make believe audience, but also us who are reviewing this remarkable piece. The performances were incredible, with the obvious David Dismouchin taking over the screen with a believable and powerful character with the charisma and personality of a television presenter. However, this cannot and will not take away from the rest of the cast's amazing ability to perform incredibly well. With these performances, my eyes were just glued to the screen for the entirety of the movie. Albeit the movie within the first act may be slightly cheesy, it also feels though this is what the director is going for, and it fits so well within the genre and the style of the film. The differentiations in aspect ratio and color added, albeit a small yet effective element to the movie, which heightened the quality and overall experience for me as a whole, wondering and anticipating what happens next. The conflict between different characters is what made this movie so powerful, and without going into too much detail as to not spoil this movie for anyone, the conflicting personalities were what made the story interesting, compelling to the audience, excited to see how the story would meander and turn alongside the characters, as this movie is predominantly set within a studio, and all we have to rely on are the performances, the characters, and the story. Again, this movie was a 10 out of 10 for me, which I would happily watch this again. My only problem is it was not longer. However, with what we did get, I'm definitely left satisfied and wanting more from the future of this director and the cast as well. So, very interesting
we're
way
just
to.
we're just gonna that's the show. We're just gonna
Yeah.
put that up instead of all us talking. We're just gonna show that.
I mean, they definitely got to the point without necessarily spoiling it. And I think it's playing again to the conflicts between the doctor, Carmichael, and then Jack being kind of being the middle person and all that. And I think that was really well done. And even Christo, who dies off screen. I know that his what happened with him and like the projectile vomiting and everything that
Yeah.
happened. A lot of gore. Well, not a lot of gore, but I think that's what's interesting to me is like how you can still have a scary movie where we had oh crap. Last movie we went to go see,
Abigail?
Abigail. You have Abigail with a ton of gore, and then you have this with very little but effective. I think that really did a great job here. So good job, guys, and thank you for the review.
For sure. And once again, what did you think of Late Night with the Devil? Let us know in the comments below. Are we on the right page? Are we all gung ho for this, or did you hate it? Are you like Lance and just thought this was terrible? Let us know. Um, Dan, we're back on a rotation, so it is by all my calculations your turn. So what are we going to be talking about next episode?
So look, after coming out of watching Abigail and talking with some of our viewers on the topic of vampires, I know you and I were spitballing if we had a rundown of the best vampire movies, what would they be? Well, one that rates really high on my list, and I hope on yours, the viewers as well. We are going to do Interview with the Vampire. Bum bum bum. So tune in next time to see us do that. In the meantime, again, like the video if you did like the video, subscribe to us if you'd like to hear more, and please leave your comments on how this played out. Did you learn anything interesting? Do you have more fun facts you'd like to share with us? And how would you rate this on a scale of the sacrificial daggers? How would you rate it with the daggers? Yeah, let us know.
And now, much like last episode, Dan had drank the vampire blood. This week, Dan is possessed. So, so yes. So everybody, join us. Let's get our Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt on and watch Interview with the Vampire, and come back here to talk about it. And until then, we'll see you in your nightmares.